Next on Worcester News Tonight, city leaders in Worcester show support for the immigrant community. Plus, reaction to Millbury Planning Board approving plans for a new methadone clinic in town. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Andy Madison. We begin tonight with a large Speakout event in the city aimed at showing support for the immigrant community in central Massachusetts. Tonight's gathering at City Hall, organized by Worcester Interfaith, included a pledge to keep everyone safe from unfair attacks. Mayor Joseph Petty was among the speakers. The Interfaith chair says now is the time to show support and unity.
Statement, as well as our city manager. We will not be part of going backwards. We seek working together to ensure that, as the heart of the Commonwealth, the only beat you hear in Worcester is that of love and not of hate.
More than 50 religious leaders signed a petition meant to combat hate and racism in the community. Earlier today, our Rosalind Flaherty took a closer look at the message behind the Speakout event.
Our goal is going to be to declare this pledge today, and the work we have then ahead of us will be to put this pledge into practice.
Reverend Jose Encarnacion is the chair of Worcester Interfaith. He says a Speakout Tuesday aims to have a community stand together against what he calls a climate of fear.
State that we reject hate and racism.
Worcester Interfaith says more than 50 local religious leaders, community organizations, and elected leaders have signed onto a statement that reads in part, "We pledge to challenge and resist those attacking immigrants and refugees, our transgender GLBTQI brothers and sisters, blacks, Latinos, and those who practice their faith, especially Muslims and Jews." Reverend Encarnacion says the Speakout is not simply in response to President-elect Donald Trump, but it's something the community has needed for a while.
Mainly, I think, because now there are, there's more of an increase right now of fear in our communities.
William Breaux says everyone has a right to express their opinion, and the chair of the Maine-South Alliance on Public Safety says he would like to have a larger discussion on immigration and what impact refugees have on Worcester.
The concern is public safety, terrorism, and we haven't had that full in-depth debate on how it works in Worcester, central Massachusetts, and New England.
Breaux is holding a public meeting with city leaders and law enforcement on Thursday. In the meantime, tonight's Speakout is meant to ease the fear some in the community may have.
To ensure that these communities in our city will not only be loved, but will be protected and will be safe.
Rosalind Flaherty, Worcester News Tonight.
City of Worcester looking at possibly using early voting in next year's municipal election. Voter turnout in last week's election was the highest the city has seen in decades. This may have been helped by early voting, a new option in Massachusetts which allowed registered voters to cast their ballot before Election Day. The topic was discussed at tonight's city council meeting. According to city officials, about 16% of people who voted in Worcester used early voting.
I'd like to see early voting at the city council level and at the state election. I know it's something they're going to go back and they're going to regroup and see if, on the statewide level, whether or not they want to expand it.
According to the unofficial numbers, about 65% of registered voters did vote this year. Election officials say they are still tallying ballots and hope to have the official results next week. Plans for a addiction clinic in Millbury causing some controversy among town residents. Last night, the town approved plans for the new clinic, and some residents are concerned about the clinic's proposed location. As our Brittany Schaefer shows us, some residents are prepared to keep fighting against the clinic coming to Millbury.
We chose this space to have this meeting when you know it's a lightning rod issue.
A heated board meeting in Millbury drew dozens of residents to oppose the new methadone clinic. The planning board unanimously approved the Spectrum Health building, but some residents feel differently.
We're all very disappointed in the outcome.
Spectrum Health site was protected by the Dover Amendment, which exempts the nonprofit from certain zoning restrictions. In the meeting, the board said Spectrum Health's counseling is educational. Therefore, the residents couldn't oppose their location on Howe Avenue.
The town of Millbury is told that we legally have no control. This organization has used bullying tactics.
The Dover Amendment limits the town as to very little they can do.
Paul Frost is the state representative for the 7th Worcester District and says many residents have come to him voicing their concerns.
They're worried about their kids, they're worried about their neighborhood, they're worried about the school bus stop, they're worried about kids playing at Windle Field. And I think they're all legitimate concerns and issues.
I've lost a couple of family members, and it's a thing we need. We just don't need it right close to where all the kids are.
I think offered them other locations and they feel that this is the best spot for them.
Larry Richards attended the lengthy meeting Monday night and says he started a petition to change the bylaw so a clinic of its kind can't be near the schools or playgrounds. Richards says he already has more than 200 signatures and he will keep fighting.
Very frustrated, and it's not an American thing. Usually you have reasonable people doing reasonable things, so everybody gets a solution. We're getting nothing.
Brittany Schaefer, Worcester News Tonight.
There's some concern in Milford tonight after a handful of residents found KKK newspapers at their doorsteps. Brian Burnell has the latest on the investigation.
Actually, my wife she thought it was the morning paper out in the driveway.
But it wasn't the local paper. It was this, a copy of The Crusader, which bills itself as the premier voice of the white resistance. Peter Filosa is one of several people in Milford who found copies of the racist paper at the end of their driveways.
Of course, right away you could tell because the bottom said KKK.com, the Christian newspaper, Ku Klux Klan.
He says he read an article or two.
I just kind of wanted to see where the heck they come from. And they come from a lot of the wrong places.
This has happened a couple of times over the past month in Milford, with papers dropped at night in driveways in seemingly randomly chosen neighborhoods. Police Chief Tom O'Laughlin, though, he was targeted. He got a paper in the mail. His department has been looking into this.
We gathered copies of the newspaper to take a look to see whether or not people were being targeted based upon protected classes. In violation of their civil rights. We determined that that wasn't the case because they left one at every single residence.
He says Milford may have been chosen simply because the person delivering the Crusader lives in the area. As for why...
Do you think it could be a serious attempt at recruiting?
Oh, most certainly.
If that is the case, Milford may not have been the best choice.
Just randomly picking people, it just really doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And kind of randomly picking Milford, too.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much very democratic kind of town. We're a very liberal town. Our population is very, very diverse.
I spoke with Pastor Thomas Robb from Arkansas. His name is on the newspaper, and he essentially confirmed what the chief was thinking, that this is probably someone, a local follower, who has a lot of the newspapers and is taking it upon himself to pass them out. In Milford, Massachusetts, I'm Brian Burnell reporting for Worcester News Tonight.
A Worcester man recovering after police say he was attacked outside his home last night. The incident happened on Ives Street. Authorities say it appears the man was hit over the head with a metal object after he got out of his car. When police arrived on scene, the victim was conscious and semi-alert. He remains in the ICU where he is listed in serious condition. There's limited suspect information at this time. Anyone with any information is asked to contact the Worcester Police Department. 1 year after several weapons were stolen from the U.S. Army Reserve Armory in Worcester, federal prosecutor says one of them was used in an armed robbery in Boston earlier this year. The Telegram and Gazette reports a defense attorney confirmed the information to a reporter earlier this week. 6 rifles, 10 handguns were stolen from the facility last November. Since the robbery, the FBI has recovered all but 5 of the weapons. The agency is still offering a $15,000 reward to anyone with information on the remaining weapons. 3 people are facing charges for the break-in.